In a world shrouded by an enigmatic virus, where remote existence reigned and screens became the sole windows to society, Kanata found himself in an anomaly. While others lamented their isolation, he shared his days with the class's pinnacle of beauty, a surreal reality born from the necessity of online classes. His thinking was abruptly shattered when a playful touch, a gentle caress of his thigh, sent an electric jolt through him. A strange, involuntary noise escaped his lips, a sound that echoed through the virtual classroom, drawing the attention of all. Hoshikawa Haruka, the very source of his disquiet, smoothly attributed the sound to her brother, a fabricated excuse to mask his embarrassment. After muting his microphone, Haruka offered a soft apology, yet Kanata remained flustered. How could he not be seated beside a vision of such ethereal beauty? Her silky hair, flawless skin, and captivating eyes created an aura that was both alluring and intimidating. Haruka, rumored to be from a prestigious lineage, was the epitome of perfection, a figure seemingly untouchable. In a world where countless admirers confessed their affections, Kanata had resigned himself to the belief that they existed in separate realms. Yet here she was, close enough to him. His mind replayed the incident, the lingering warmth of her touch. "Did your computer act up again?" he asked, trying to regain his composure. Haruka, with a radiant smile, confirmed his suspicion, describing the strange behavior of her device. Kanata couldn't shake the feeling that she was observing him, engaging his reactions, perhaps even enjoying his discomfiture. She detailed the malfunction, then casually mentioned its resolution. "That's good," he replied, his thoughts a whirlwind. He chastised himself for his wandering thoughts, reminding himself of his gentlemanly nature. Had he been less restrained, he mused, he might have succumbed to his desires. His train of thought was derailed by the sight of Haruka's exposed thighs. A blush crept across her cheeks and Kanata's mind raced. Was it intentional or was she unaware? He swiftly covered her with her skirt, his heart pounding, thinking if she has noticed or was he being obviate. When he met her gaze, he saw a faint flush, so he asked about her, her face being red and is she unwell? His voice strained. "Haruka." Her cheeks still tinged red, simply replied, "Yes, I'm fine." He then thinks to himself that he should brew some warm tea later, and as Hoshikawa is not good with machines, she can't make it. The scene shifted, rewinding 3 days into the past, a prelude to the unusual cohabitation that had become their reality. In April of his second year of high school, Kanata encountered a building with a sign prohibiting entry to non-staff members. He questioned the janitor, who explained that an infected person had necessitated disinfection. Kanata inquired about the janitor's workload and when he could re-enter. The janitor replied that entry was prohibited for the time being. Kanata, seeking clarification, asked about the duration of time being, to which the janitor responded that the dormitory had been closed permanently as of that day. Kanata panicked, protesting that his belongings were inside. The janitor informed him that everyone had already evacuated to their hometowns. Kanata was shocked to learn that he had been left behind. The janitor explained that a mass infection was a concern and that he had been instructed to send everyone home until the dormitory reopened. Kanata pointed out that he had been overlooked and the janitor offered a brief apology. Kanata called his mother, and as the phone rang, he lamented his unexpected predicament. When she answered, she expressed fear of infection and refused to let him return home. He then contacted his friends, but they all declined to help. He went to an internet cafe but was turned away because they don't admit high school students after 10 p.m. He tried various other places, but all were closed or refused him. Disappointed, Kanata settled down to sleep on a park bench. He reassured himself that he wouldn't die from sleeping outside, as it was spring and not too cold. As he drifted off, he noticed someone approaching. To his shock, it was Hoshikawa Haruka, his classmate. He pretended to be asleep. He thought their eyes might have met but dismissed it as a misunderstanding. He then saw her holding her phone aloft, moving in a strange, almost dance-like way. Haruka was struggling to find a Wi-Fi signal and was clearly in distress. Kanata thought her voice sounded robotic. He felt her gaze and then their eyes met. He said, Haruka startled. "Yes," she replied. Kanata apologized for startling her. Haruka said that wasn't the issue. She was simply surprised. She then recognized him. "Yashino-kun," she asked. Due to his mask, she hadn't recognized him at first, but then confirmed he was from her class. Kanata, puzzled by her sudden familiarity, confirmed his eyed. Entity, Haruka seemed pleased, and he wondered if she always looked so happy. She asked him why he was in the park in the dark, her tone returning to normal. He explained that he was planning to sleep outside, and then told her about himself and that he lives in the student dormitory, which she already knew as she had seen him leaving it. This surprised Kanata, and he wondered if she had her sights on him. Kanata explained his situation, detailing the infected person at the dormitory and his resulting homelessness. Haruka listened, then asked about his family home. He told her his family was afraid of infection and had told him not to return. Haruka acknowledged this with a simple "I see." Kanata then asked Haruka why she was in the park so late. She explained that she was trying to find a Wi-Fi signal. She had heard that without internet access, they wouldn't be able to attend online classes. So she had come to find a signal to bring back to her house. Kanata, surprised, informed her that the park's public Wi-Fi was only accessible within the park's vicinity. He suggested that if she had internet at home, she could set up a remote learning environment. He asked if she had an internet network or Wi-Fi at her house, to which she replied that she didn't know. She then thanked him for the information. He suggested she try to figure it out herself, but Haruka insisted she was terrible with machines. She asked if he could help her, citing his membership in the computer club and his knowledge of technology. Kanata's imagination ran wild. He pictured Haruka asking him, "Yashino-kun, you're so knowledgeable about computers. Could you please teach me if it's not too much trouble?" He envisioned a romantic scenario and eagerly agreed, thinking it was better to help Haruka than sleep outside. Haruka reminded him that they had discussed Wi-Fi before, and she asked if he could make her house Wi-Fi accessible. She added that her house was only a 5-minute walk away. As Kanata tried to ask about her parents' permission, Haruka grasped a small part of his clothing and began to lead him towards her house. He thought to himself that it felt a bit like a date, though he knew it was probably inappropriate to think that way. When they arrived at her house, Kanata was amazed by its grandeur. She clicked some buttons which seemed to be a passcode. Haruka invited him inside, saying, "Please come in." Kanata, feeling awkward, apologized for intruding. "I've been living in a dirty boys' dorm," he explained, "so I'm a bit nervous." He was amazed by the house's luxurious interior and state-of-the-art facilities. Haruka asked, "What are you talking about?" and then removed her mask, revealing her stunning face, which surprised Kanata. He looked around and said, "The interior is amazing. The facilities seem really convenient." Haruka replied, "It's convenient," but then changed her tone, saying, "No, it's incredibly inconvenient." Kanata, confused, asked, "Inconvenient?" Haruka then asked him to check the computer in her room, and he replied, "Got it." As they approached the room, Kanata inquired about her family, noting the lateness of the hour and his desire to greet them. Haruka responded with surprise, revealing that her family was absent and she lived alone, separated from them. This revelation startled Kanata, his mind considering the implications of their solitude. Haruka, observing his reaction, asked if he was all right and if he wished to enter. Kanata quickly affirmed that he was fine. Haruka expressed relief and mentioned the slight embarrassment of it being her bedroom. Upon entering, Kanata noticed a pleasant fragrance. Haruka indicated the laptop on her desk, which Kanata recognized as it's the same laptop loaned from school, prompting him to resolve to fix it swiftly. He announced his intention to touch the laptop, causing Haruka to repeat the word with a flustered tone. She then stated her need for mental preparation. Kanata, confused, reminded her that this was the purpose of his presence. Haruka gets flustered, admitting her unpreparedness. Kanata wondered at her unusual reaction, suspecting she might be hiding something on the screen. He apologized and suggested she touch the laptop first. Haruka, surprised, questioned if she was to touch it, expressing her difficulty. Kanata interrupted, asking if she lacked experience and is hesitant to do so. Kanata sought confirmation before touching the laptop, asking if it was permissible. Haruka, flustered, gave a hesitant affirmative. He then began the repair. He narrated his actions aloud, stating, accessing the settings menu, inputting the apartment's Wi-Fi password. Meanwhile, Haruka engaged in an internal debate, questioning the propriety of the situation and her own technical abilities. In the background, Kanata continued, initiating the browser, connection established, done. Haruka, impressed, remarked on the speed of his work. Kanata explained that the device would automatically connect in the future. He announced his departure, saying he would be leaving. Haruka responded, grasping his hand tightly, and thanked him for his assistance. Kanata offered a polite, "You're welcome," and then asked if he could return to the park. Haruka, still holding his hand, told him that it wasn't a good idea and that he might get sick. She then mentioned that she lived alone and had a spare room next door, noting that it was already late. She trailed off, hesitant. Kanata acknowledged her that she had mentioned living alone earlier. He He then apologized for overstaying his welcome. Haruka, sounding frustrated, asked why he was trying to leave after he had helped her. Kanata wondered if she was offering him a place to stay, but he was hesitant to ask, fearing he might misinterpret her intentions and be disliked by her. After all, Haruka was popular and universally admired. Haruka, her voice rising in frustration, said aloud, "I'm bad with machines. I can't do anything besides Wi-Fi." Kanata, confused, responded, "Is that so?" She continued, "But Yoshino-kun, you're good with machines." Kanata says that he wasn't particularly skilled. Haruka insisted that he was definitely more skilled than her. "Remote classes are starting," she explained, "and I'm worried I won't be able to attend them properly." That's why Kanata asked, "Do you mean, is it okay for me to stay here?" Haruka fidgeted with his hand and said, "If Yoshino-kun wants to stay." She then finished, "It would really help if I could let you stay." Haruka's face lit up and she said, "Yeah, it's okay, you can stay," still holding his hand. Kanata asked if it would be a bother. Haruka replied, "No, not at all, I'm actually happy about it." Kanata asked, "Happy?" Haruka explained that she was happy because she could learn about machines from him. Kanata said that he would teach her anything she wanted to know. Haruka giggled, her grip on his hand tightening. Kanata's mind reeled at the sudden display of her cute charm. He found it difficult to reconcile this playful persona with the image of the flawlessly composed beauty he knew from class. Mesmerized, he watched as she reiterated, "Well then, Yoshino-kun, I'll be counting on you from now on." He responded in kind, "Yeah, I'll be counting on you too." He later reflected that he had failed to detect the subtle deception in her words. A flashback revealed Haruka's childhood. Her family had always remarked on her inability to lie, stating that her eyes betrayed her every attempt at deception. This had instilled in her a sense of apprehension. However, as she drifted off to sleep, a sense of relief washed over her. He didn't find out, she thought, a silent prayer of gratitude. "Thanks to that, I can live with Yoshino-kun from now on. Sorry for lying." So the truth behind her chance encounter with Kanata in the park hours earlier. Haruka had discovered about the dormitory's closure. She had wondered if Kanata had returned home, a thought that brought her a pang of loneliness. As long as he's doing well, that's what matters, she reasoned. But then a thought struck her. What if he couldn't go back? So basically, Haruka was not actually bad with machines. She was, in fact, quite intelligent. So she thought about the few places a high school student could go, and that the only location near the school would be the park. Thus, her presence at the park wasn't a coincidence, nor was her need for Wi-Fi. She had been searching for Yoshino-kun. She had been smiling the entire time, but her mask hid it. Pretending to be bad with machines was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Haruka then thought about how she didn't know how to approach him. The scene flashed back a year. She remembered a time when she was really confused about a phone connection. She had just moved and it was spring break, so no one was around and it was 30 minutes already. So she then approached a guy and asked him to help her with her phone. He helped her, and she was surprised when he fixed it so quickly while she was thinking that it has been a while when she last relied on someone. He told her it was trying to connect to free Wi-Fi and the problem is now fixed. She was thankful and started to explain that she just bought the phone and didn't know anyone when he interrupted her and asked if she was planning to enroll at the school. Haruka confirmed her intention to enroll, to which Kanata replied, "Me too." He offered his assistance for any future technical difficulties. She accepted, but in that moment, she realized she had fallen in love with him. Upon enrolling and meeting him again in their classroom, she was struck by his apparent indifference towards girls. His presence, like a gentle breeze, was reserved yet calm, sincere, and undeniably captivating. She wondered if it was simply his inherent coolness, or if it was her increasing affection that colored her perception. Unable to devise a way to approach him, she resorted to daydreaming. She replayed his gaze, his words, the feeling of his hands, his actions, and his voice in her mind. As her unrequited love grew, her desires became increasingly difficult to contain. And thus, in the present day, she brought him to her apartment. Drifting off to sleep, Haruka's thoughts were consumed by Kanata. She mused on his endearing demeanor, wondering what kind of reactions she could elicit with more playful pranks. She yearned to rely on him more, to feel the warmth of his touch. A constant stream of fabricated stories was a means to that end, a way to draw him closer. Yet her heart had pounded earlier, a flush rising to her cheeks at the mere thought of his touch. She chided herself for her flustered reaction, reminding herself that there were more pressing matters at hand. Tomorrow, she resolved, she would focus on closing the distance between herself and Yoshino-kun. The state of emergency provided a unique opportunity, a chance to spend extended periods in close proximity. She considered the possibility of creating an irreversible situation, a fait accompli. She didn't want to appear pushy or frighten him. Instead, she envisioned a scenario where he would take the initiative and make a move on him. A romantic daydream where Kanata, unable to resist, would assert that she was responsible for tempting him. To achieve this, she needed to subtly guide him, to create an environment where he would naturally make the first move. She was determined to keep her lies and desires concealed, to maintain the carefully constructed facade that allowed her to be near him. She squishes the pillow all flustered while thinking that if she sneaks into Yashinkan's bed, and it might not be a good idea. Kanata's slumber was abruptly interrupted by a tactile sensation, a softness that proved to be Haruka herself, his voice a startled shout that roused her sleep. Then she yawns and asks him what happened, to which he asks, "Why are you here?" She replies that because this is my room. He says that she is right, and he asks her isn't her bedroom next door. She then apologizes and says that it looks like she was half asleep and came to wrong room, and continues to say that she's going to make breakfast and wait for him, leaving Kanata completely speechless. Kanata, being astonished, says that it was close and she was warm and soft, and he could still feel her in his hands. He thinks to himself that he didn't do anything weird right. Later on in the house, he analyzes the place and notices that there was men's clothes and toothbrush, and most of her stuff is pink, though then maybe those are her boyfriends. He thought she was a pure and proper young lady, but that was just an image he had of her in his mind. Then he wonders that if all his assumptions are true, then Kanata being there would be a bother, and he needs to properly thank her later. She suddenly appears and apologizes to Kanata, saying that the breakfast isn't ready yet and she'll prepare it right away. He thanks her and says that he'll help her too. She says it's okay and she is just left with cooking. He asks her if she's good at cooking, to which she replies that she's living alone, so he has to be at some extent, to which he said that she said earlier that she was bad with machines, so he was worried. He then says that she can surely use the stove and microwave, right? She replies that no, she can't use it, and she was having some trouble confusing Kanata, and then he says that it must have been really inconvenient and tough for her all this time, to which she replies that yes, it was really inconvenient. Suddenly the rice was cooking, and she panics and says that she managed to get this work with sheer determination, which is again praised by Kanata. She then asks him to teach him how to use a stove, so he instructs her about the switch in the middle is for on and off, and about the heat, to which she asks him that she doesn't get it. So could he come over and show it to her? Kanata suggested he could just have rice with a raw egg, which made Haruka upset. He apologized and said that as a freeloader, he could not go against her, and proceeded to teach her about the switch. As he went close to her to explain, she asked him why his face was red and if he was okay, to which he replied that maybe it was because the pot was getting hot. She said, "I see." A few minutes later, he ate the food, which he found incredibly delicious and unbelievably well done, considering she could not even use machines. He said that he was a lucky guy to be able to eat such delicious food, and that he was thankful not just for the meals, a place to stay, lending him clothes, but also for everything else she had done, to which she replied that he shouldn't worry about it and that she was giving those clothes to him, which took him aback. He said that he would pay for them since they were brand new and asked if they were her boyfriend's clothes, to which she replied, "What are you talking about?" and shouted, "No, you're wrong. SH. He then exclaimed, "I don't have a boyfriend and I've never had one before and I just prepared them to be well prepared." He replied, "I see," and apologized for jumping to conclusions. She continued, "Besides, the first person I've ever let into this house is you," which surprised him, and he asked, "Are you saying that for real?" Kanata suddenly felt embarrassed and told her that if there was anything he could do, she should just tell him. This line confused Haruka, so he further explained that he was seriously considering sleeping outside yesterday. But thanks to her, he could live like this and he didn't know how to properly thank her, which is why he wanted her to tell him anything. She thought to herself, "Please make a mess out of me already," but said aloud, "No, it's nothing." She hesitated and then said, "Then a date, no, not that," and continued, "I want you to come with me for shopping and stuff." She then asked him if that was okay and if they could both cook together afterwards, because of course it was tough doing it alone. He offered to cook instead if she preferred. Haruka asked if he could cook. He replied that he could if she was okay with cup noodles or instant food. She giggled, then apologized, assuring him that she wasn't making fun of him. He replied that he couldn't blame her for laughing. She then said she would like him to cook, which surprised him. She clarified that she wanted to try it. She added that anything Yashinkan made would be delicious, which made him smile. He said that if she asked, he would make it for her, which delighted her, thanks to the enjoyable time spent with Hoshikawa. Kanata completely lost track of the enigmatic virus outbreak in the state of the world. They proceeded to the shopping area, which was as crowded as usual. Haruka called him over to the self-checkout, and Kanata asked if she was sure about using it. She replied that it was quicker that way. He then asked if she knew how to use the self-checkout, to which she replied, "You know, I really can't." He proceeded to instruct her on how to scan the items, and she quickly grasped the process. He then noticed her gazing at his face and thought that she should be observing the process rather than staring at him. He asked if there was something on his face, to which she responded that she was merely checking if his mask was properly positioned. He dismissed it with a "no, never mind." She then removed her black card and stated that she would handle the payment, prompting Kanata to decide to pretend he hadn't seen it as the background said, "Thank you for coming." As Kanata walked through the street, he reflected on the strangeness of the situation. The area, usually bustling with noise, was now eerily quiet, as if it were a different world. Haruka approached Kanata, asking if he was looking around for a particular place to visit. He explained that since they were out together, he wanted to treat her as a thank you for everything she had done. But he was disappointed that everything was closed. Even though she had told him not to worry about it, he still felt bad. Haruka suggested having a home cafe sometime, to which Kanata readily agreed, saying it sounded fun. They stopped at a traffic light, and Kanata pointed out the pedestrian button, explaining that she needed to press it to cross. Haruka replied that she didn't know how, and Kanata proceeded to guide her. Hoshikawa was the top student in their grade, but Kanata reminded himself that she was also human, so it wouldn't be strange if she had things she wasn't good at, since she excelled in certain areas more than others. It wouldn't be strange if there were areas where she fell short. They both then reached the elevator of her house. He asked her to press the elevator's button, to which she replied that she didn't know how. So he guided her and she thanked him for that. He thought it strange, as Haruka was actually not bad with machines. As he remembered clearly when he first came to her, she pressed the button accurately. There were too many other unnatural things too, and he wasn't easily fooled. Haruka noticed that and asked him about it. He went speechless, looking at her eyes, and said, "Thanks for the hard work," after regaining his composure, which was lost in her beauty. Kanata thought to himself that he wanted to know why she was lying, but at the same time he wanted to protect her smile. She thanked him for his hard work and expressed her sincere appreciation. He then pondered the purpose of her pretense of being bad with machines. Could it be a ploy to lure him into her house? He dismissed the idea as improbable. As he contemplated, she suggested he must be tired from carrying the bags and advised him to rest. He then thanked her. He knew she was enjoying his reactions, and he didn't believe she had any malicious intent. However, for Haruka to show such affection towards him was an unusual situation. But given the abnormal situation the world was in, perhaps such things could happen. He then entertained the thought that Hoshikawa might actually have feelings for him, and this abnormal situation can be everyday life for him. At the closed school, there was not a soul in sight. Kanata thought to himself, although he came to check on how the school was doing, he was glad that he was by himself. Because when it was just the two of them in Hoshikawa's house, he felt like he would get some weird ideas. He thought whether they had not decided on when they were reopening the dorms. He saw a sign that prohibited non-staff members from entering and wondered why the school grounds were off limits. He could hear the sound of the club activities. He thought to himself that he should head back because it would be a pain if he got caught by a security guard. While walking back, he was thinking that even after being driven out of the dormitory and having nowhere to go, it did not feel very real. But then that things had settled down. He has realized that the world has changed. He pressed the doorbell. Haruka greeted him as Yashino-kun. She asked him what was wrong and he looked tired. He replied that it was nothing and he was going to wash up. She suggested that once he was done, they could make dinner together. He replied, of course. He thought to himself that it still felt like a dream, living together with that Hoshikawa. He wondered that if he was alone, he would probably succumb to the feeling of loneliness. But him right then was not alone. She asked him what kind of food he would like since he was here. She would like him to tell her. He wondered that Hoshikawa was probably not bad with machines, but why she would pretend was a mystery to him. But because he just wanted to keep living with her, he also turned a blind eye. Living with the class top beauty, he thought, in a luxurious mansion with 3 meals a day, that alone had merit and that they might be able to grow closer. He wondered that would it not be impossible in that scenario to not expect anything. He, in his delulu, thought of her saying to him that while living together she fell in love with him. He thought that in order to protect this sacred lifestyle, he has to be vigilant as to not displease Hashikawa, so that his ulterior motive was not found out. He picked up an underwear and realized after looking at it, since there were only 2 of them in the house, so that meant that was hers. He thought that it would be bad if she saw him with that and he has to put it back. She enters the room just then and called him a perv. He turned around and saw her and knelt down asking for an apology. She asked him why he was holding her underwear. He replied that he thought something fell, so he picked it up. She asked him that he was doing that just when she came. He replied yes. He thought to himself that at that rate he would be despised and chased out of her house. He imagined her saying she did not think that she was such a vulgar person. He told her that he, with a heavy conscience, really did not mean to pick it up. He did not know that the thing he would be picking up was that. She replied that she was not mad, and to not be scared. She apologized for leaving something weird in such a conspicuous place. He told that it was not weird at all, it was silky. He stopped himself mid-sentence and apologized again. He thought to himself he said something weird and he was an idiot. She replied that she did not mind. He looked up and she was crouched in front of him. He peeked a little. He told her he would confess that he saw it. She, surprised, asked him what he saw. He thought to himself it could not be helped if he got chased out anymore. She replied that she did not mind. He asked if it was all right and she replied it was because it was him. He thought it was okay because it was him, but he was a guy. He should be a bit more vigilant. She asked him if he said something. He replied that it was nothing. He said he would be careful from then and she could use the dressing room first and left the room. He thought that he should not trouble her any further by saying unnecessary things. Once he left, she thought to himself, he was nervous, so she ended up doing something unpleasant. She pretended to drop her underwear. It was supposed to be a small prank, but she ended up troubling him. She thought that while trying to make him conscious of it, she might have overdone it. While they were sitting in front of the television, he thought it was a peaceful Sunday, but at that rate, he did not feel like the rest of the day would go by calmly like that. He realized that he was very close to her nut. This was not an issue of social distancing. She told him that her phone screen would not display. He thought to himself that she was pretending as always. He asked her for her phone to take a look at it. She handed him the phone. She asked him if she could watch him operate it. He agreed. She replied that he was a great help. He could not focus while looking at her. She said that she would be able to remember it more easily if he saw it up close. She complained to him about the tap and said that the hot water would not flow. He asked her to let him see. She told him that her hands had gotten cold because of the water he was washing her hands with. She held his hands and asked him if he would give her some of his warmth. He replied if she was fine with his, she could do what she wanted. He opened the tap and the hot water came out. Sometime later, she told him that the bathroom lights would not turn on. He said he got it and he would check it and asked her to wait a little. She stood close to him. He thought all day like that, pretending to be bad with machines. She was sticking to her whenever she could. If he let his guard down, he might pin her down, but that was not good. He thought it was not good and he must endure it, his rationality. He fixed the lights. He told her that it seemed that the wiring was bad. It was not broken in the first place though. She got close to him. He thought to himself that it was dangerous to keep going like that. And in order to protect both her body and that lifestyle, he has to put as much distance as possible. She thanked him for fixing the lights. While taking a bath, she thought to herself that he was avoiding her. Ever since the incident with the bathroom lights earlier, whenever she tried to talk, he distanced himself or tried to go back to his room right away. She thought that sure enough she was too clingy and ended up getting hated. She thought that she always acted so impulsively and then regret it. It was her bad habit, but she could not leave that the way it was. She asked him if she did something. He replied that she did not do anything and he was sure of it. She turned around and asked him that somehow she felt like he was avoiding her, or was it just her imagination? He replied that it was just social distancing. He thought he could not say that because he might pin her down. She told him that it was saddening, especially since they were together. Nutschi guessed it was true that he would not want to catch something from her. He told her that it was not like that, and actually he would rather catch something from her. She could not understand what he said. He told her further that he did not mean it, and that was both inconsiderate and creepy. He was going to ask her to pretend like she did not when she interrupted him. She, leaning towards him, asked him if it was just close enough to not get infected, then she could keep clinging on to him. A few minutes later, he thought to himself that it was unfair if she made a face like that. Then all his efforts to distance himself from her would be in vain, but since she looked satisfied that much should be fine. She was thinking that she tried sitting next to him, but somehow she could not focus on her phone at all. Until then, she had only been looking at him in the classroom, but then the person she loved was actually right beside him. She thought his warmth, his scent. She could feel them right next to her, but she was worried that he would hate her, so she had to be careful. She would make sure to never cross the line that would make him hate her. She thought to herself that it also looked like he still had not found out that her being bad with machines was a lie because she pretended like she did not know a lot of things in the heat of the moment. He naturally might be suspicious if she were to get caught lying then. She wondered if he would hate her. She thought to herself that a remote class with just the two of them the next day, would she be able to safely make it through? Since he arrived at Hoshikawa's house on Friday night and gotten through a turbulent Saturday, it was finally Monday and he woke up from his sleep. Haruka greeted him and he was still surprised as they were waking up under the same roof. He thought it was already the third day since they started living together and time was going by way too fast. He took the brush as she yawned. He looked at her thinking she looked cute even after waking up, and he ended up staring at her lips. It felt like he was looking at things he shouldn't be. And actually, from that angle, something else came into his view and he ended up looking at her breasts, thinking that they were huge. He again thought that maybe she wasn't wearing a bra, but then stopped his train of thought thinking, don't look. But once he had noticed them, it had become impossible to not be aware of them. She then asked if he was going to wash his face and apologized for keeping him waiting. And as she said that she had just finished, so he should go ahead, she slipped and fell onto him. He then asked her if she was all right, and then realized where his hand was while holding her. So he apologized, but she said it was fine and thanked him for helping, and said that it was all right so he should take his time and went ahead to close the door shut. Kanata breathed a sigh of relief, thinking, thank goodness. As Haruka didn't seem angry, he was grateful for her kindness, even though it had been an accident. After she closed the door, Kanata hoped she hadn't noticed his instinctive clenching of his fingers. He decided to put the incident behind him, reminding himself that remote classes were about to begin. Remote classes follow the same schedule as regular classes, so student will attend it in their uniform as usual. So teachers, yesterday Haruka asked Kanata if it was all right if they could take their classes together, to which he responded that she should take her classes in her room and that he didn't want her to get distracted because of him. He thought to himself that if everyone found out they were living together, it would become a huge uproar and cause her trouble too. She said, "Is that so? Okay." He thought he would take classes by himself in the dining room and said that he would be starting the class now. The teacher said that since this was the first remote class, it was going to end early and might be short, but they should focus. Suddenly, they noticed that Hoshikawa-san was not there with them. So the teacher asked if her connection had been cut off and what the problem was. Since the teacher could see all of the students, Haruka would get caught if she left the class. The teacher said that it seemed like Hoshikawa-san was the only one who had been disconnected. And since it was the first time, things like this were bound to happen. But as it was Hoshikawa-san, she would be fine. Kanata thought that as she was the honor student, they trusted her and continued the class. But he wondered if she was all right. The teacher asked the students about a problem and asked who would solve it, suddenly calling out his name and startling Yoshino-kun. He began to explain the problem when Haruka suddenly appeared out of nowhere, startling Kanata. He quickly improvised, telling the class that a cockroach had appeared, so he was going to disconnect for a bit and apologized for the interruption. He then turned towards Haruka and saw that she was crouching on the floor covering her ears. He asked her what was wrong and if she was okay, to which she replied, trembling, "Where is the cockroach?" He explained that it was a lie so he could disconnect from the class. She sighed in relief and then explained her problem, saying that her computer wasn't working properly. He offered to take a look, but she quickly took the laptop and held it close. She asked him to take his laptop and come to her with it, and although he asked why, he obliged. She was smiling, so he assumed she was fine. She explained her problem, saying that the screen had suddenly turned black and asked if the laptop was broken. Kanata pressed the power button, turning the laptop on. Haruka was surprised and, understanding what had happened, said, "It seems it was off. That's how it works." Kanata then asked if he could return to his class, thinking that she seemed to have understood. Haruka pouted, and reading her facial expression, Kanata wondered if she wanted him to take his classes with her in her room. He considered the possibility that she had staged the entire incident to have him stay, but quickly dismissed it as unlikely. They both rejoined the class, and the teacher remarked, "So you've both returned." She asked Yoshino-kun if he had successfully dealt with the problem. He replied that he had somehow. The teacher then added that she was glad Hoshikawa-san had also resolved her connection issue. Haruka apologized for causing her worry, while Kanata wondered what she was trying to accomplish. The teacher moved on to the next page of the lesson. Kanata and Haruka made eye contact, and Kanata thought, "Doesn't she dislike sitting next to me?" He then noticed her smiling and was once again struck by her beauty, thinking how cute she looked. He reasoned that she didn't seem to mind sitting with him, and if they remained quiet, they wouldn't be discovered. They could take their classes together peacefully. However, he didn't know he would regret this decision moment later when, in a whispering tone, he asked her what it was. She replied that her computer was acting strange. He replied that he would take a look at it then, and the screen would not turn on. She leaned towards him and blew into his ear. He got very shy at that. He could not understand if she actually blew on his ear. He thought that he was still in class, so he could not make a sound and needed to calm down. She then tried to touch his hand. He was sweating from just sitting there. He thought that at that rate he would be done for, and he needed to distance himself immediately. He pulled his hand towards himself, but she reached his hands again. He could not understand she would reach for his hand and caress it. There was an announcement that the class was dismissed and to assemble for the next subject in the same way. He pondered. The number of times she had teased him during class was at least 30 times, and his heart could not take it anymore. He was so nervous, but he almost felt grateful. But he could not understand why. Was it to make him happy? He could not understand what she was doing during class. She shut her book and complimented him for the good work during class. He thought, since she looked satisfied, were his reactions that funny? She looked at him and asked him if he was angry and apologized if he disliked that. He replied that he was surprised, but he did not particularly dislike it. She did not quite believe him completely. He looked at her and thought she was freaking cute. Her skin had that translucent quality, and the gap between her usual self and her appearance as an honor student was just unfair. He understood the feelings of the people who had a crush on her. If they were to see her sitting next to someone like him, they would not be able to believe it. She asked if they could take the next day's classes like they did that day. He asked her if she meant taking the classes together. She replied that if they do that, then when a problem occurred, he could fix it immediately. He agreed. He thought that it should be fine as long as he did not show up on her webcam. He asked her if she would do anything weird. She replied she would not. She would not do anything that he did not like, and smiled. He could not understand her expressions, but he agreed and told her it was fine for them to take classes together. She told him that then they would take their classes just like that, and she was looking forward to it. The day after she had suggested to him about taking their classes together, the two of them started taking their online classes next to each other. If something went wrong with her computer, he could handle it, and he would be able to check the state of her screen too. As long as he did not accidentally show himself on her screen, it was a pretty good plan, but that was if she did not prank him like the day before. The teacher asked her if she could answer the next question. She replied she could. She said that the structure of a viral envelope is usually made of a lipid bilayer that played a significant role in resisting disinfectants. While she was answering, he thought, she was a calm, honor student, and she was like that even in the classroom, and that was how she usually was. He thought while listening to her voice up close it was strangely calming. He accidentally yawned. The teacher asked if he did hear somebody yawn just then. He realized that it was close and her microphone picked up his voice. He ended up relaxing FG a little too much, and he had to be more careful not to get caught. Teacher said that their morning classes were over and to reconvene after lunch. He thought he was beat because he had been so focused on her he could not concentrate in class. Even though he was staring at his computer screen, he could still see her beautiful side profile. No matter what he did, he could not help but notice the sound of her breathing, the rustle of her clothes. She interrupted his thoughts by asking him what he was going to do for lunch. He asked her if it was about the class line. She nodded. There were a few messages on the class group which suggested that they should all have lunch together or a room lunch. Room was an app used for web meetings. It is capable of video calls with a large number of people, so it was used for a lot of remote setups. He thought to himself, if that was supposed to be fun, and he does not have enough friends to do that kind of thing, so he was not sure. But she invited him. He looked at the messages on the screen and wondered that the we did not include him. The girl suggesting that was Hisaka Natsuki. She was Hashikawa's friend and a cheery, Hashikawa-obsessed girl. She was also the person he struggled with most in class. He told her to not worry about him and turn on the camera and enjoy the lunch. She replied that Natsuki had said we. He was struggling to answer when she asked if it was because he had not hung out with Natsuki and the others. He agreed. She replied that she would introduce him to them and he should eat lunch with everyone. It would be more fun that way. She presented a lunch box and told him that she made a portion for him too. He thought that it was the landlady's homemade lunch, her kindness, and it was quite delicious. And she was smiling, so he could not refuse. Natsuki asked him why he was in the room. She was giving him that unpleasant look as expected. He wondered why, but somehow Hisaka really hated him. She replied that she thought it would be nice to eat together with him, so she invited him. Natsuki asked her if she was that close with him. She replied that she had just recently gotten close to him, though that was 3 days ago. Natsuki stared at him. She looked very suspicious. They were like an angel and a Cerberus, and he wanted to disconnect from the room immediately. Natsuki asked what the relation was. He replied that she was just a friend. Natsuki replied that she was not asking him. He timidly replied thanks. Since he did not want to be glared at, he was keeping his mouth shut, but he thought why she was friends with her. The kids were talking amongst themselves. Someone said that wanted to meet everyone. Someone else said that they wanted to hang out, but the virus was bad. One person said that she had heard that kids could not get affected though. If that was true, was it not fine to go to school? Someone replied that even if the symptoms do not appear, Aben could still transmit it to family members. She replied that she did not want that and she would be blamed by her relatives. He thought it felt like he was eating in the corner of the classroom. He was thankful he has her handmade bento. The color scheme looked good and it tasted even better, and thanks to that he could escape from that exhausting reality. Yoshino asked her if she was living alone even then. He coughed on hearing that question. She told him that he was noisy. He apologized for his cough. She thanked him for having his back. She asked her again if she lived alone. She replied she did. She asked her if she was not lonely living all by herself. She replied that she was not really. She gradually was getting stressed about the questions. She asked her if she was lying. She replied she was really living by herself. She replied that she was lying and she was actually lonely. She asked if she could come over and hang out with her. He almost replied to her and was going to tell her to not come. She replied that once things settled down, then they could hang out. He realized that it was close. He almost got too caught up and joined in on the conversation. He thought finally he could mute himself. And anyway, no one would notice if he was not there. He left the room, and just as he had thought, nobody noticed. But while everybody else felt lonely by themselves, he did not feel lonely at all because she was beside him. He was heading back to his room when she called him. She told him that Natsuki had texted her a while ago and if it was all right if she came over. He replied it was not. He told her that it was not something he could decide, so he would leave it up to her. He said he would just be a nuisance if she came over, so he would just head out. She told him that he should not, and she would refuse her. He told her that they absolutely could not tell anyone that they were living together. She, confused and a little sad, asked him whether them living together was something they could not tell anyone. He replied that they could not, as everyone would definitely make a big deal out of it. She agreed with him. He thought that she looked disappointed. She asked him that if they were found out, they would be in trouble because it was their secret relationship. He replied that that was why he asked her to keep his being there a secret. She asked if she should also keep that from Natsuki. He requested her to keep it from her no matter what. She replied that she wanted to tell her, but she might just hint at it instead. He asked her it would not be a problem if she had someone in the way of them too at her place. She replied that it would not, as he was really not another to anyone, and he need not worry. He thanked her for saying that much and for being kind to him in a lot of ways. She replied that she did not think he needed to thank her for that, but he was welcome. He pondered in his mind that even though he said that he did not think just thanking her was enough, he could let himself being spoiled by her like that. He would have to figure out a way to repay her soon. They left for their rooms. She entered her room and thought to herself that he was so cute. He told her thanks and he was so honest and a good guy. It would be nice to just tell him that he was cool for letting her act spoiled, plus his reputation was improving too. She thought she really loved him and he was just too amazing, but he did not like it. She wanted to hint at their real relationship to her friends. If they got caught living together, would it not be fine to tell them that they were dating? She shook her head and thought she could not. He would definitely say that he was causing her trouble and end up leaving. She thought if she ended up getting hated, she would lose everything. And she had to be patient because she wanted to always be beside him, and if possible, in the future too. She texted Natsuki that she was sorry that she could not invite her over. There was a premonition of trouble brewing within her deep, profound eyes. A month has passed. He was thinking that since classes began and he started living with the class's top beauty, time flew in the blink of an eye. During that time, her puzzling provocations had been gradually escalating. Once during class, she accidentally dropped her eraser. While she was trying to reach for it, he thought that if he reacted then they would realize that they were taking classes together. He had to stay indifferent and act indifferent. Suddenly, he felt her poke him. She was touching him again, there a grin on her face. He thought that since her provocations were gradually escalating, he was beginning to suspect that she was doing that on purpose. But if by any chance she liked him, then he would understand why she was acting that way. He just did not see why she would like him. After all, they were talking about the school's top beauty and dull, ordinary him. Still, living with her was not so bad as no one knew what would become of the world. He fairly enjoyed the sports, festivals, school events, trips. But in place of those school events, being able to spend his days happily living together with her was not bad at all. The room was open on the screen. There was a lot of chatter in the background. Since then, he had been joining the room for lunch every day. But whenever he tried to speak, Hisaka would immediately snap at him, so he just tried to blend into the background. It was time for the afternoon classes to start. He was drooping while sitting at the table, wondering what was wrong with Hisaka. She asked him if he was feeling unwell as he looked pale. He replied that he was just tired and was not used to these classes. He told her that he got sleepy in the afternoons. Haruka, with a mischievous glint in her eyes, leaned closer to Kanata and inquired, "Would you perhaps prefer a lap pillow?" Before he could respond, she deftly adjusted her skirt, revealing a considerable expanse of her thighs. Or she continued, her voice laced with playful suggestion, "Would you prefer this?" Kanata, caught completely off guard, could only stammer a lap pillow. He was simultaneously uncomfortable and rendered speechless by her sudden display. He couldn't help but notice the exposed skin of her thighs, and a wave of awkwardness washed over him. He thought to himself that she truly didn't have to do this, especially if it was causing her any embarrassment. He wondered how long she would continue this playful teasing if he simply ignored her. He attempted to defuse the situation, saying, "It's all right, I'll just use the sofa during the break." However, Haruka countered with a resolute, "I won't let you use it." Kanata, taken aback by her firm response, asked, "Huh?" She pouted, her expression conveying a playful stubbornness. "If you don't want a lap pillow," she stated, "then I won't allow you to use the sofa." Kanata, seeking an alternative, suggested, "Then I'll just nap on the bed." But Haruka swiftly negated that option as well, saying, "I won't let you nap there either." He then proposed napping on the floor, only to receive another firm denial. Frustrated and unsure of how to proceed, he finally relented, saying, "All right, please just give me a lap pillow." Haruka's face lit up with triumphant joy, and she responded with an enthusiastic "sure." Kanata, remembering they were in the middle of class, questioned Haruka's actions. She reassured him, saying that the teacher only focused on the textbook and blackboard so they wouldn't be caught. He reflected that this was true even in the classroom. He rationalized that his desire outweighed his fear of being caught, and since other students were also dozing off, they wouldn't attract attention. He cleared his throat and said, "Excuse me." Haruka responded, "Go ahead." He then laid his head on her lap, immediately noting its softness and warmth. He became acutely aware of their proximity, particularly her thighs, and struggled to know where to look. He shifted his gaze, only to find himself staring at her breasts, which were also very close. He muttered a quiet sorry, which confused Haruka. She asked him what he was apologizing for, and he replied, "It's nothing." Haruka then commented on the softness of his hair, and Kanata jokingly expressed his worry about going bald. She offered to give him a massage and proceeded to do so. He found the massage blissful and remarked on how good it felt. He then questioned the absurdity of their situation, wondering what they were even doing in the middle of class. He looked up at the ceiling and then analyzed Haruka's expression, noticing that she seemed genuinely happy. However, he was too nervous to actually fall asleep. He continued to wonder how long he could maintain this charade, suppressing his own sense of reason and fooling everyone around them. The following day, an announcement declared the commencement of Golden Week, a period of enforced domestic confinement due to ongoing virus mitigation efforts. Kanata observed that the atmosphere felt far from celebratory. He had been confined to his residence for over half a month, with both he and Haruka lacking external engagements and commercial establishments largely shutter. They anticipated a continued period of indoor isolation. His mobile device emitted an auditory signal, which he thinks that an incoming call from his parents, but then it reveals to be Hisaka Natsuki from his class, so he first thinks to ignore it. But then she again calls back, so he thinks she won't stop until he picks up. So he answers. "Yes," he responded. "You answered," Hisaka stated. "If you intend to answer, do so promptly." "Can you hear me?" "Yes, I can hear you," he affirmed. You are so unresponsive. Respond appropriately," she exclaimed, her tone laced with irritation. He reflected on the nature of their interaction even after a prolonged period of disconnection. "Why did you call?" he inquired. "Naturally, I have a query," she replied. "What is your question? Please expedite the matter and terminate the call." "What is the nature of your relationship with Haruka?" she asked, eliciting a startled response from him. "What?" he stammered. "We are classmates." "I am aware of that," she retorted. "Are you friends?" She persisted in her interrogation regarding their relationship, resorting to verbal denigration. He questioned her motive for the inquiry. She explained that Haruka had extended an invitation for him to enter her room, which caused her apprehension. Merely due to that, he asked, seeking clarification, to which she countered, "That is it a problem?" Kanata replied that no, not really, and he just thought she might be worried. Hisaka retorted with an angry, "Shut up." She then clarified that she was worried a weird bug like him might latch onto Haruka. Kanata protested, asking how she could call him a weird bug to his face. She countered that they were on a call, so she wasn't actually saying it to his face. Kanata accused her of splitting hairs. Frustrated, she told him to forget that and just answer the question. He explained that Haruka had asked him for help with her Wi-Fi when she was having trouble, and he had simply helped her. She asked with curiosity. She was troubled. Kanata asked if he had said anything strange. She replied that no, not really, but it was rare for Haruka to be troubled. Now that she mentioned it, she realized she had never seen Haruka ask anyone for help in class, except once before the entrance ceremony. Kanata then asked why she was friends with Haruka. She responded with a surprised "ha." After a moment, she said that Haruka was someone she admired. Haruka had helped her with her studies and many other things in middle school, and because of Haruka, she had gotten into high school. Hisaka stated that she owed Haruka a great deal, which was why she was so protective. Kanata replied that, since they had attended the same middle school, he had assumed they were close. Hisaka then asserted in a firm tone that she needed to crush any weird bugs trying to latch onto Haruka. She then asked where Haruka's parents' house was. Kanata, his voice tinged with panic, asked, "What, isn't she living alone near school?" Hisaka clarified that she meant Haruka's parents' house, and Kanata replied that he had never asked. Hisaka sent him a link, which he found to be a website for Haruka's family. Upon inspection, he saw that the homepage prominently featured a large hospital run by her family. Her father was a doctor and the hospital's director. He then fully grasped the extent of Haruka's privileged background, realizing she was even more of a princess than the rumor suggested. He recalled their time together, remembering her living alone in a high-quality mansion and using her credit card during shopping, confirming that she was indeed from a very wealthy and influential family. He replied, "I see," to Hisaka, and she further on asked him if these are his only thoughts and nothing else. Kanata commented that running a hospital must be difficult in the current climate. Hisaka retorted, asking if he didn't think it was impossible for someone like him to get close to someone like Haruka. Kanata admitted that he had thought that from the beginning, and Hisaka acknowledged his honesty. Suddenly, Kanata asked Hisaka why she hated him. She hesitated, then began to speak in a confused tone, saying, "Because Haruka, about you." She then became irritated and exclaimed that talking to him was driving her crazy. She announced she was hanging up and warned him that he wouldn't get away scot-free if he dared to lay a hand on Haruka before abruptly ending the call. Kanata fell back onto the bed, muttering that he really wasn't good at dealing with Hisaka. He then realized he was thirsty and went to get a drink of water. Then only Haruka asks him did something happen, to which he replies that sorry for being noisy and told her that he was just on a call with Hisaka. She gets surprised on hearing that and says a call from Natsuki. She further asks if him and Natsuki were close friends, to which he says that no, they are not. So she then asks him if they are trying to become close with her, to which he says, "No, not at all," and T. And she says, "Arf right." Kanata pondered Hisaka's words, wondering if she genuinely believed that inviting him to her room for lunch constituted getting close. Just then, Haruka approached him, asking why Natsuki had called. He told her that Natsuki had wanted to know the nature of their relationship. Haruka asked what he had told her, and he reassured her, saying he had simply told Natsuki that he had helped her when she was in trouble. Haruka responded with a simple, "I see." Kanata asked Haruka if he had said anything unnecessary. She replied, "No, not at all," and then added, "Rather, it's more like you didn't say enough. I would want you to tell her more." Kanata, confused, asked more. He then said that next time he would make his denial clearer and make sure to tell Natsuki that they were just strangers. Haruka replied with a strained, ha ha. So it turned out like that. Kanata wondered if he was misunderstanding something. As she left, Haruka said in a subdued voice, "See you later," and looked down, which puzzled Kanata. Haruka retreated to her room, her frustration mounting. She couldn't believe Natsuki had called Kanata. That was beyond my expectations, she thought. Who would have thought Natsuki would call Yoshino-kun? She realized she had made a gloomy face in front of Kanata and worried he found her behavior strange. She lamented that, because of her, he had ended up connecting with another woman. She had only wanted to hint at their relationship, but it had backfired. She thought it would have been better if she were the only one who knew his charm. She was afraid that if he talked to everyone properly, they might end up liking him too. Haruka acknowledged that not wanting Kanata to be close to other women was narrow-minded of her. However, even though it was selfish, she wanted to keep him to herself. She resolved to make sure Natsuki never found out they were living together. Haruka got a phone call from Hisaka at noon this Saturday. Since Golden Week was around the corner, a dessert-making trend has started, befitting the current pandemic situation. She and Kanata were watching a cake-making tutorial on the television. She asked him if he remembered what she said the other day when they were at the shops. She had asked if they could make some coffee back at home. She told him further that that was why that day they should make a huge pudding. In the kitchen, they were preparing to start cooking. She told him that she had prepared the ingredients so they should start. He replied, sure. He glanced towards around and thought that baking together with matching aprons was, how to say it, pretty fucking great. She told him that first of all she would like to use the microwave to melt the gelatin. He asked for how long. She replied that she did not know. Same as always, he thought to himself, she could use it just fine. He knew that because he heard her use it when she was alone. She told herself to mix gelatin with water and then to put it in the microwave, say for 10 to 20 seconds at 600 watts. While he was setting up the microwave timer, she leaned in close to him. He asked her if she was a bit too close. She replied that she just thought it would be nice to learn how to use the microwave. He thought to himself that it was too cute to handle. He replied that there were no problems from his end. He wondered how many times she was planning on using that excuse, but he thought that he would not worry about it anymore. He told her that then they had to mix the warm gelatin with warm milk while lifting the lid. She stood there staring at him. She thought he was cute. He instructed that they had to then whisk the eggs and prepare the caramel in the meantime, and he saw her gazing at him. She would murder him with those eyes, he thought. She apologized for having him do the bulk of the work, and she said she would help more from then on. He replied that it would be nice and asked her if she could pour the liquid mixture into that container, and that way she would not have to use the machines. She told him to leave that to her. He told her doing all that work alone made him feel like a proper chef, and he felt like he could cook anything right then. He added that he said that, but cup noodles were as far as his expertise went. She replied that the noodles he prepared the other day were really delicious. He replied that he just added hot water and waited for a few minutes, but he thanked her. He continued that personally, if he was going to eat something, he would prefer if it was made by her. She looked at him surprised. He told her that the breakfast she prepared every day and the bentos she made were sublime to say the least. She asked him if that was so. He continued that he should not say that. He was already imposing on her as a freeloader by living there. He should learn how to cook and make his own. She cut him off mid-sentence and told him that she would make it. She told him that as long as he wanted to keep eating her stuff, she would be more than happy to make them for him. He replied that if it was no bother, he would like to keep eating them. She got very happy at that and told him to leave it to her. A day later, they were looking at the dough. She asked him if he thought that it had hardened. He told her that he thought that the exterior had, but he did not know about the interior. He told that it was pretty hard to flip it alone and asked her if she could help. She obliged. They hold the dough and flip it at the count of 3. She exclaimed in amazement that it was huge. He told her that he was surprised that they managed to flip it with no casualties. He held the plate and shook it a little. He told her that it was all jiggly, even though it was completely hardened and it was shakier than it looked. She warned him that he was jiggling it too much. He told her that it was like slime. She told him to keep jiggling it back and forth and started laughing. He asked what was so funny. He asked her to lay it off as it was not even that funny and she would make him laugh too. She asked him why he would not stop to jiggle it. He replied that the urge to jiggle it aroused even more when she asked him to. She took a spoon of the pudding and exclaimed in delight that it was so good. She told him that it was really tasty, but they could not finish it all. He replied that they had made it too big in the heat of the moment. She told him that they could freeze the rest and eat it with ice cream. He replied that it seemed that they would not be running out of sweets anytime soon. She told him that it felt endless and it did not get smaller no matter how much they ate it. He replied that was to be expected and asked her to look at the sheer size of it. He told her that he wished he could call people over, but he supposed it would cause pretty big inconveniences. She replied that she was pretty content with spending time alone, with him making him blush.